It's Buttons with Gonro Games. And he's bummed because he injured his paw. Can you look at your paw? Does it still hurt? Your paw still hurt, buddy? See, I tore my paw and I can't go running all day, so I've had to take a day off from running in the canyon. So I am bummed out. But hopefully tomorrow we can be back in full strength, because those cars won't race themselves, will they? Huh, Buttons? Anyway, been a long time since we've done a video here. Need to get back on top of things, so there's a lot to talk about. I've been working on a video really expanding on some of the thoughts I've had about the state of Magic the Gathering. And I want to preface this that, yes, I am incredibly upset with Wizards of the Coast, and I'm going to go down that road on this particular video because I have a lot to cover concerning Spider-Man and the reaction to Spider-Man. But I'm also still incredibly disappointed with the quote-unquote community. And the reaction to Spider-Man, I think, has actually gone a little bit off the deep end in the wrong direction. As I stated before in other videos, I think I'm at a different stage of grief than most people are with Magic the Gathering. I've realized that Magic is now the mechanics. The mechanics are still some of the best that have ever been produced for trading card. Well, let's just call it what it is. Magic the Gathering is probably the best, it is the best card game ever created as far as being mechanically sound and what you can do with the game. Now, I'm a huge fan of One Piece right now, but I even realize the limitations that One Piece has compared to something like Magic. Now, why I'm loving One Piece, I think that it's a very well-managed game at the moment. The community feels like 2014 Magic, where there's just a lot of energy, everything's super chill, everyone is excited to be there, and it seems fresh. And so for me, it is almost like a nostalgia hit going back to the days that I enjoyed most of Magic the Gathering, which was 2014, 15, 16, where I do believe there was this like robust energy of people discovering this trading card games and what they could really do with trading card games as far as conventions, tournaments, organized store play, that sort of stuff. And so I kind of feel the same energy with One Piece. And we can point our fingers and blame exactly what went wrong with Magic. You can blame the commanderification of Magic. You can blame Hasbro becoming very tone deaf and focusing more on what I call FOMO products and really milking whales than really even caring about things. I mean, I've talked about endless in these videos. And so I do want to do that video about where I'm very disappointed, though, with kind of community reaction, because I think this fight should have happened years and years ago. I actually looked at an old MTG Goldfish article in 2020 where Seth Safranov wrote an article about how if we're discussing with Wizards of the Coast, why do we keep giving Wizards of the Coast all of our money? And I feel it's kind of the same way with how Magic is gone. And I actually think that Spider-Man is like not only too little too late, but it's almost misdirected as to if people wanted to fight this fight, why didn't we do this back in 2020 it's really when they started pushing the video that I want to make is called Magic is for Everyone. And I'm going to try to rephrase that kind of expression to basically mean just shut up. You have to allow this to happen because Magic, so every bad decision, every predatory is what Seth calls a lot of the, the VIP packs. My particular thing, I know I got a lot of flack for this back in the day, is when they started printing all the cutesy cards, like the cutesy dogs and cats, and everyone's like, oh, I can make a dog and cat commander deck. I'm like, what does this have to do with Magic? Like, this is like something that should be on an unset, or something, definitely shouldn't be in a standard thing, where it's like, it has nothing to do with like fantasy theme or whatever. It's just a cute dog. And then it's like, well, don't you want to play with cute dogs, Kevin? Like, someone wants to. My daughter loves cute dogs, and I want her to enjoy Magic the way that I enjoy Magic. So I'm glad they're printing a cute dog, so then my daughter can now experience this. And this conversation actually happened. This was like a comment on one of the videos, or a conversation I had in real life, or I can't remember if it was a patron or something that I had this with. It's like, well, basically telling me Magic is for everyone. And so now when we're into this Spider-Man, that's the kind of thing. Like it's a little bit hypocritical now. This is like kind of the line in the sand now for the community. They don't want a lot of these universes beyond. Where I could say that basically the entire premise of even like the cutesy and the meme stuff that was starting to happen in Magic was basically just this Universe Beyond too. It's kind of milking a demographic for memes and taking away from the IP and kind of the focus just really starts to shift on that, especially if the money drives towards that. If everyone, when the dog and cat commander and when all these other like I don't want to call them misaligned, but definitely like not really in line with how Magic used to be with releasing stuff. When they started to see the amount of money that people would throw out for those specific things, it was over. And we knew that it would turn into, again, just the Fortnite-ification, the meme culture, the people trying to personalize the experience. They know there's a huge drive for that. So anyway, again, we'll get to that whole entire video now that I've rambled on about talking about a video I haven't created yet. I'm trying to get like the links together and really flesh out the idea and make more of an edited video where I get my thoughts together with that. However, this video, now we're 5 minutes in, is going to now be talking about my disgust for Wizards of the Coast. And it is not over Spider-Man. That is not the topic. It's not over this guy right now, which I have massive cancellations from patrons that, you know, this I'm kind of getting a little bit disappointed. Like, again, I want to talk trash on people that support me, and I love the community we have got going over on my Patreon. It's more than just a subscription service where I sell things. Like, people discuss products. A lot of people are very, you know, business savvy there, and it's kind of turned into a nice little club, nice little community over there. It's grown way beyond me. In fact, a lot of people say the only reason they're in it is because of all the discussions they're able to have with the people there. They could actually not care much about my subscription service or me particularly anymore. They just love the community over there. So shout out to everyone that has actually helped make that. But this is kind of the problem I'm dealing with, is just like when we become so profit oriented, it becomes less about the product and more about, you know, what we can flip on it. And unfortunately, I still do think that there's way too many cooks right now. There's not enough end consumers and too many people trying to flip Magic cards because of now spilled over from Pokemon. Again, we've covered that, water on the bridge, that topic over and over. My thing right now that I'm really mad at Wizards, though, is they're starting to get a little bit of pushback of that, because now the speculators and the flippers are like really panicking over Spider-Man, and it's like caused a chain reaction to where Wizards of the Coast is panicking over Spider-Man. And I also watched another video, I guess, good shout out to where Shadow's gone on. I really do enjoy Seth from MG Goldfish. Like, I won't have the nicest things to say about that company in general, but Seth himself is a stand-up guy, and I like his contributions, a lot of times his well thought out articles and videos when he actually talks more about the, you know, the culture of Magic and the data of Magic. And he did a good video at the start of the month too. They went over kind of the insane profitability of Magic the Gathering. And this is what was happening last time. I always like to show, let's go over here to the Lord of the Rings, during this area for Lord of the Rings, where everything was dirt cheap during Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings just sucked up all the money, and Wizards just kept printing and Amazon dumping and doing things to milk, and it wasn't profitable for any of their strategic partners. Everyone else lost their shirt on Magic the Gathering, while Magic Wizards themselves were drawing in record profits. And that did last for a while, but then we did go to kind of a shared bear market where Wizards of the Coast actually lost a lot. They actually didn't lose money. I don't think they've lost money in a quarter now for a long time, but they definitely dipped from the height of Lord of the Rings into like the Commander Masters era, where Commander Masters was actually just such a fail of a product because they were expecting to get massive amount of profit and sales off of Commander Masters. I think that they were expecting to print Commander Masters. Did Commander Masters even get a second wave? I don't think it ever did, because the reception of Commander Masters was so horrid that Wizards of the Coast just like, yep, we're going to move on from it and go on to other things. Where I think that was one of their products that they were like going to plan to milk like they did with Modern Horizons 2. And speaking of Modern Horizons 2, Modern Horizons 3, same thing. They weren't able to milk Modern Horizons 3 the way they were able to milk Modern Horizons 2 because it was too much. Finally, the market had come to the point to where it could not sustain the amount of printing that Wizards of the Coast was doing. And it was, again, the theory of how they printed and how, like, as Seth Safranov does point out, is the profit margins are so insane that Wizards of the Coast doesn't care about then dumping them on Amazon. They're still making insane profits by, if they even have to sell at below distribution costs on Amazon, then they're still getting away with murder as far as how much it costs them to produce the cards. In the video, it shows they're operating like a 48% profit margin, which is unheard of for, like, you know, billion-dollar companies. Typically, they're down in the low teens or even in the single digits for profit margins. They're actually quite satisfied with that, because when you're in that amount of money, you know, profit is profit at that point. That's a lot to go around to shareholders at that point. So if you can still get away with dumping on Amazon and, you know, make a profit, then you're very sustainable at that point, and you don't really care as much as, you know, protecting your strategic partners. And going back to like even the 2020 article, which I think Seth was spot on with, is Wizards of the Coast is very, very, they don't like to see the future and really realize that they need their strategic partners, or they need and they're like slow at learning their own lessons, because we saw them put a lot of effort and reinvestment into their Twitch streams, into trying to get the Pro Tour numbers, viewership up. And I think they're quite successful. This was pre-Final Fantasy. So what was that, like Dragons of Tarkir? I think that we're already on the up. Like, we talk about how Final Fantasy was just that, it was the greatest selling set of all times. But you got to understand too that between Pokemon going crazy, which was obviously going to bleed over into every other TCGs, when one TCG is hot, it tends to, like a rising tide lifts all boats. And so when Magic's hot, like the other TCGs are also hot. When Pokemon's hot, other TCGs are also hot due to people like really wanting to get into the TCG craze. And it's the same thing, even like if Pokemon's hot and people aren't necessarily into Pokemon, just the fact that Pokemon's hot will make people like, well, I'm gonna find a trading card game that's right for me, and they'll start, you know, buying all these other things. So it was just inevitable that Magic was going to go into kind of a bull market, regardless of Final Fantasy, where I think that Final Fantasy was the perfect storm for this insane bull market. It hit that perfect nostalgia where people were already into TCGs, and there was this nice little crossover to where then it just went nuts. So I think that Final Fantasy actually, I mean, of course it's never going to be a bad thing for Wizards of the Coast, but you could argue, and I will argue, that Lord of the Rings actually might have been a bad thing for Wizards of the Coast, because it allowed them to lose sight of what they were. A game that mainly was utility driven, with people playing their game, where there was a lot of money, residual money, that was being made by eyes on Twitch streams. You can follow market trends. I can show you proof of this, of like, you know, single cards of when a deck did well to Pro Tour, they've spiked up. And we haven't seen that with the last Pro Tours again, which is a very, very terrible warning sign, because the last bull that turned into a bear, that was the first thing that I started to notice, was that like decks that were doing well in the latest tournament did not even budge the sales data for like TCG Player eBay. Like, you'd see a brand new rare out of a standard set not even go up in value after it just won a Pro Tour, like a 4-of copy. And then we've seen that in the last, I know last Pro Tour was modern, but we've seen that now. Going forward, the cards that are seeing a lot of play are very stagnant compared to the cards that are being chased for collectability. And one of the other warning signs too is we really start to see Commander staples start to dip. So of course they're endlessly reprinting Commander staples, but oftentimes during a hot market, or when the game is actually doing well, is they really, really have to be proactive at printing staples in Commander, because the new, just the kind of the consumption, what I like to call it, the people actually putting cards into decks and them not, you know, they're being stripped out of the market and into actually what we call utility, people playing them, they're finding an end user. It actually outstretches the supply and keeps up with the reprints. So they're reprinting things at an actual acceptable level for consumers to, you know, strip that away from the market. And I'm not anti-reprint. I'm not what Rudy calls a game piece army. I don't think that your card should be worthless for people to play. I think there needs to be a fine balance between what they expect a pack to cost MSRP versus what type of value you get out of that. And it's much harder to do that in like an ecosystem that's based off utility than it is on an ecosystem that's based off gambling. And unfortunately, I think that Wizards of the Coast is trying to take a page out of the book of Pokemon and try to go that route of being, okay, we're just going to let basically the gambling of the collector boosters be the reason to buy a booster pack or a booster box or whatever it is. And I think that they're short-sighted because they're not Pokemon. They do not have that sort of, there aren't people grading Magic cards the way that they're grading the Pokemon cards. They're not people building safes, gun safes full of Magic cards where they're doing Pokemon. Now, we can talk about Pokemon because I don't think that's sustainable either. We've had numbers come out from like PSA that there's 23,000 Charizards with a 10. And I'm telling people, is there 23,000 people that want a Charizard 10? Like, I think that it's sellers selling to sellers selling to sellers. And unfortunately, that people, whoever's going to be stuck carrying the heavy bags when the bull run ends, I think are going to lose their shirts on these sort of things. right now it's a huge craze. And crazes, there are people collecting trading cards that have no business collecting trading cards, and they're going to get bored and they're going to move on to something else when something else comes around. You mark my words, we're going to go through another bear market for TCGs, and Pokemon will get hit the hardest when that happens. But again, this video is not about Pokemon. I was trying to explain why that I think that Wizards of the Coast shouldn't be trying to replicate Pokemon, and they should be the envy of all trading cards, being the utility-driven game. And again, I'm not, as I stated back, I'm not a game piece army member like Rudy likes to accuse everyone of being anti-reprint. I think there just has to be a fine balance, and I think we know that balance when cards can stay nice and consistent at their prices when a reprint occurs. We don't want things to go through the roof and become inaccessible, and we don't want things to crash to zero. There has to be a healthy balance between that. So, leading this back all in to where we're at as I'm talking about Spider-Man, is reaction towards Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast particularly, is very concerning, because I think we're heading back into Lord of the Rings. So they did the same crap with Lord of the Rings. Like, if you have a hot set like Lord of the Rings, and you even slightly overprint it, which is what kind of happened with Lord of the Rings. We saw that second holiday box with Lord of the Rings, and it kind of crashed the market because no one knew. Like, this stuff is endless. We didn't know how much Lord of the Rings was out there. Unfortunately, what happened with Lord of the Rings, we had all the people chasing the One Ring at first, and it shot the prices up, and then Wizards of the Coast just started printing into it. We had bundles and gift bundles for the first time ever reprinted for Lord of the Rings, and it was just like, it gave because again, you have to be a fine line again between people that do speculate. I mean, that's part of the market, and there's this whole thing called confidence. If the market is confident in the product, like the whole consumer confidence, knowing that people like me, a store, can actually make money on products they buy from the distributors. Distributors, the same thing. They have to be confident in Wizards of the Coast that they're going to buy a product from Wizards of the Coast and it's not going to rot on their shelf or be undercutted by Wizards of the Coast. And Lord of the Rings destroyed the confidence in all of the players outside of Wizards of the Coast because they kept printing, and then it wouldn't even give it like a month, and they dump it on Amazon. I mean, before the dust had even time to settle, they'd be like, it's not selling as good as we want it. Let's just dump it all on Amazon. They used Amazon as a way just to basically clean the inventory so they can move on to another set. And where I'm trying to go back into full circle with this to bring up my point about why I'm disappointed about Spider-Man is we're seeing the exact same thing. Now, Spider-Man might slow down, and it is showing signs of slowing down. But as we are right now, if you compare data points of when this set was released compared to how much it sold, like if you look at the total overall sold of things like Tarkir and Edge of Eternities, I believe the overall sales are still high for those. But they've had months and months and months to achieve those sales. Spider-Man, day for day, is now still like the third best-selling standard set of all time, of day to day to day. And I mean, I don't know if it's set or even if it is standard set, but put that in perspective. So this is a knockout of the park set from Wizards of the Coast as far as sales is concerned. We're not going to talk about how the community hates this and the sky is falling and everything's the trashiest set ever and blah, 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 and go down that road. We're just going to look at the data. This is a set that is still incredibly successful and incredibly popular. And Wizards of the Coast is dumping the crap out of it on Amazon? Are you serious? Like, for me as a business owner, as distributors, who, mind you, distributors basically cornered Wizards of the Coast a couple years, like 2 years ago, and told Wizards to knock this crap off. That is when we started to see the collector boosters have a tighter print run, and we started to see like more, I know they started to actually announce their reprints with distributors instead of just like blindside them with it. And it was all, distributors called basically a meeting. Wizards of the Coast and distributor had a meeting of where they could be, happy partners and still live in this age of Amazon, because Wizards basically stated they're not going to give up that outlet. That it's another way to get their product to consumers. And I understand that too, because Amazon is so massive that people use it for shopping for everything. Of course you want your brand represented on there. But at the same time, you don't want Amazon just to like kneecap everyone else's ability to make money. With how Amazon works is you have to basically do price and rendering. If you sell on Amazon, you have to Amazon basically dictate what they think is going to be what they're going to sell. But where Wizards of the Coast still has control is they can control how much they actually give to Amazon. And so if they give, way too much to Amazon, Amazon now becomes a new kind of price point for where something sells for. And Amazon's just going to clean that's their policy. That's actually Amazon 101, is they actually don't even care about losing money on particular profits. They want to sell. And they know through their own theory that if they are basically the market for things, that they make it up somewhere. So if they lose money on one product, they're going to make money on another product. And all's well that ends well, basically. So that is their strategy. But as far as like a product, that is very, very risky for a particular product, especially if you have other, cogs in the wheel. All these other things like local game stores, you have, people that sell now on Whatnot and streams and like all that ecosystem that now is a huge factor of this whole thing of how they decide how much Magic the Gathering print. You can't have one place that gets just a glut of product all of a sudden, that its whole goal is just to blow it all out, especially during these kind of cold markets. So where I'm seeing what's so worrisome is exactly the problem we're having with Lord of the Rings through basically before they called that meeting when everything was trash. No one can make any money on this era of crap. This was all garbage. Like no stores could ever make a profit margin on like this era of Magic the Gathering, like the Dominaria United. Like it was horrible. Like a lot of stores closed their doors. We went from like a glut of stores, and it was the same thing as 2020 was a massive glut of post-COVID where everyone had the free money and it went into TCGs, and there was that big boom in Pokemon and the big boom in Magic, and everyone and their dog wanted to sell Magic cards. And then we went through that era where stores closed down. You didn't see people even caring about stuff because nothing was profitable. And it's just crazy how we've done in a complete full circle to where we are at again with the third best selling set of all time of at least for standard, with this now gift bundles that nobody wants. These things were selling for like $200, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow. And again, I don't think that it's necessarily Spider-Man. Just look at the amount of supply of Spider-Man that's out there. This sucker was printed, like I was super wrong. I'll eat crow here, and the information I was fed was definitely not accurate, and I don't blame it, because the information that I got when I was saying that Spider-Man is having issues was correct. The problem was, the issues was it was delayed, and that wasn't good communication between Wizards of the Coast and distributors. And then, of course, I think Wizards of the Coast does this on purpose. They create this like scarcity, this false sense of scarcity, and then it gets everyone panicking to they have to like order as much as possible, because we don't know if we're ever going to get a restock with Spider-Man. If we have these IP issues where Arena is not going to be able to have Spider-Man, and maybe they'll print Almond Path into actually the cardboard, because they are having these dispute issues on what they can carry, what they can do with like products, and Ultra Pro not being able to secure even like the rights for creating the supplemental like sleeves and stuff that go with the set. We had all that mess, and it creates all this uncertainty, which then gets the whole market roaring of like, oh, I better buy this because it might be my only opportunity. And then we just start seeing, when is this supply train going to end? This is the exact same thing that happened with Lord of the Rings. When is this going to end? How long does this IP last? When are they going to stop printing Lord of the Rings? Do I need to get in to do it out? I need it out. And it just leaves such a sour taste in everyone's mouth. Like I said, confidence to our stores, I think, are going to start to shy away from Magic the Gathering. And then we're going to go back into this bear market that's going to residual. I think people are going to continue to, I mean, the memory of Final Fantasy is still quite, and then Final Fantasy, of course, now coming into this holiday set, we'll have to actually see if that actually sells well. Like right now it is. But can you with confidence say that even this Final Fantasy holiday set is going to be a knock of the park when Avatar is just cratering right now? Avatar, this was a set that everyone lost their minds about. Then when it was announced, like it had Final Fantasy pre-sale prices, and now we're seeing I believe I did see Avatar for the first time sell for like under $550 or $540. So the lowest, we don't even know where the lowest is now for every day on TCG and eBay. It's lower and lower for those collectors. And you got to think, collectors for Spider-Man, it wasn't too long ago, were $550. Now they're all the way down to $450. In fact, a record low sold on TCG Play for $333 for a collector booster. And again, we don't know where the supply ends with that, because there continues to be more listings on Amazon, where continues to be more specials given through distributors for collector boosters. And yeah, the confidence is just absolutely shot. And I think that Wizards of the Coast, the buck stops with them, because of they're basically their inability to manage their own releases and give that information the market needs. I know that like Pokemon has had a lot of people complaining about like underprinting and not being able to get supply, but at least Pokemon is staying very consistent with how they're doing things. And now they are ramping up printing again, and we could see some problems with that IP or with that TCG. But it has nothing on the absolute holes in Magic the Gathering. It is so worrisome that what more can you expect as a company? Like, this is the new bar is everything has to be a Final Fantasy. Everything has to sell like the One Ring out of Lord of the Rings or Final Fantasy, or it's a dumpster fire, huh? That is the new world we live in. And I guess bringing this back around to full circle of where I was talking about, like this whole thing could have been avoided with Magic the Gathering if they would have focused on being a game. I still think, I'll have to link that article from 2020 because I think the set puts out perfectly that these things don't have to be exclusive. You can't make the, like you can still make profit and make the community and the confidence terrible. Because again, now Wizards of the Coast is now basically mainstream, which means that people that have no idea about the drama of Spider-Man or the community, have never watched a community college video in their life, could care less, don't know who he is, never walked into a local game store in their life, they're still aware of Magic the Gathering and buying Spider-Man and thinking this is the coolest thing ever for crossovers. And WotC and Hasbro are seeing that in real time. They're seeing their profit margins go up. But it doesn't have to be exclusive. You don't have to have an upset community and record profits. Like, you can have record profits and a community that's actually happy. And I think that the Wizards of the Coast has just kind of lost sight of that, to where again, they just don't care. And going back to that 2020 arc from Saffron Olive, if we keep throwing money with a, like what he says, like a, stink eye, where it's like, oh, I hate Wizards so much, take my money. Like, I hate this secret layer. I'm going to buy it though because I feel like I have to. I mean, that's kind of the issue we're in now with Magic the Gathering Wizards of the Coast. So it's really, really tough being a store right now. Being kind of I know that a lot of my videos seem like they're negative Nancy about a lot of stuff, but it's just like, it's really rough in the Pokemon world with all the game just turning into a massive gambling. I'll have to talk about that too. Zach showed me directly from GameStop that they're just basically doing gambling. So you can buy a graded card, but you don't know what that graded card is, and it's not even physical. So you just you get on their app or their website and you buy whatever it is, like the $100 graded card, and it could be a $5 graded card, or it could be a $1,000 graded card, and then it just goes through some little animation and flips over what graded card you won, but they haven't sent it to you yet because you still have to pay shipping. But you can then sell it directly back to them instead of go through all the hassle of actually getting it yourself. So you can actually sell it back to them at a discounted price of what it would go. Like, it's worth $900. You can sell it to them for $830, but you only paid $100 for it. So might as well just it's just gambling at that point. That's a slot machine. That's just basically like, there's no physical product. And you better believe me that I don't know, whatever department, the FTC or the FCC or whatever it is going to step in eventually with this crap. And it's when there's this amount of money, and when it starts to get into actual gambling with things, where a lot of these whatnot rip and shippers are using gambling strategies, like they're utilizing all these odds where the house eventually breaks even or makes ahead with like basically all or nothing stuff, where you can bet on if there's going to be a chase card in a box. If there isn't, you lose it all, you don't get anything. And if you do, you get it. And it's like, geez, like, it's no longer like the focus of the game has completely been lost in all of this chaos of the get rich quick scheme gambling epidemic that we're going on with TCGs being the kind of the vessel for that. And that also worries me. But then again, Wizards of the Coast not knowing what they want to be. It's like they want to kind of step into that. They want to be the Fortnite. They want to be like, what in the world is Wizards like what are their core principles right now? That's what we kind of want to know. What is their strategy with getting things through distribution to stores? Because it makes absolutely no sense right now. And as I stated before, if they can somehow drop the ball on a set that is selling better than almost every set in the history of Magic the Gathering, and it leaves such a sour, poor taste in everyone's mouth, even in investors' mouth, because it can't be Final Fantasy. Why can't it be Final Fantasy? Why didn't it do as well as Final blah, blah, blah? And then you have Chris Cox today talking about what a success Universes Beyond is, and how they're actually expecting a set in 2026 to actually beat Final Fantasy. And I'm thinking what are they alluding to, The Hobbit? Because I think they're was it Star Trek or The Hobbit? One of those two, they're really, their data tells them it's going to break Final Fantasy. And so there's this like injection, of course, that this is the best thing ever for Magic. Like it is just pure, utter chaos right now with trying to make heads and tails of Magic the Gathering. Now, I've rambled for half an hour with this, and promise you that other video is coming too, because again, we need to bear some of the responsibility. Like this is a huge, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Introspection that we need to have as like trading card people, of people like, it's just rough. It's rough being someone that's put their heart and soul and life into you know, creating a store, a subscription service, a business model, everything surrounding trading cards, and trying to navigate this incredibly messy and now almost like toxic like environment that we're expected to work in, with the absolute insanity of the Pokemon market. Doesn't even play the game anymore or care about the game anymore. Just they care about getting rich. It's just sad. It's like heart-wrenching to me that I'm a gamer. That's who I am. I know I crap on collectors all day long. I think collecting's cool. There's definitely things that are cool about collecting. But when it comes to the point where Pokemon's come to, or even where people want to push Magic, and especially like Universes Beyond and like, you know, the Soul Stone and serialized cards and all this nonsense like that, like it's just heart-wrenching coming from someone who the love of TCGs was sitting down at that damn table and playing. That was my whole point to starting the store, to try to, like, I put so much effort into trying to teach people, even Pokemon, the amount of Pokemon people I've taught to play Pokemon, and trying to get that going, and trying to get like kids excited actually about playing the game. Like, you know, your Pokemon cards you can play with, and it's actually kind of fun if you build a deck. And Pokemon's actually kind of cool too, because all the gamblers basically supplement, not what's the word I'm looking for, subsidize the hobby, because you can get tier 1 decks for basically nothing, because everyone's chasing, you know, the ultra secret cards rather than playable cards, and so it becomes incredible. We had a guy come in and trade out like his entire bulk of Pokemon. I'm like, dang. Have you ever tried to open up like a Pokemon box just to find the uncommons for like trainers? It's incredibly expensive if you were to try to find like the traders need for a deck. So if Pokemon was a utility driven game, you would see like $200, $300 decks easy in Pokemon. But since it's not a utility driven game, and like uncommon is just the amount of Pokemon packs people open and get subsidized, you can build top tier Pokemon decks for like next to nothing, like 30 bucks. And that's kind of how One Piece is too. Like One Piece is still subsidized a lot by the gamblers, by the, you know, the collectors. Anyway, I'll talk more about that. I still need to do my barometer video, and I think I've got like 30 minutes of me rambling, so this actually makes up for a lot of videos I've missed. We'll try to get back in the swing of things. I will be out of town on vacation in a few weeks, so we need to ramp up some production and get some things queued up so you guys don't get lonely with me gone for 2 weeks. But anyway, I'm glad everyone that stuck around has stuck around. Like, things get busy, I get out of the swing of things. Excuses, I'm full of them. But you know who's not full of excuses? Buttons. Say, I would have ran rain, sleet, snow, and broken paw. Because I am Buttons and I run. That's what I do with my life. And I'm a depressed boy because I didn't get my walk today. But we'll get a walk tomorrow. I promise you, Buttons. Tomorrow, we will go and chase those cars. Thanks for watching.